Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Battle Hardened Los Angeles. We're about to head into round 3 of play, and I'm Mitch Leslie, of course, joined by Blake Meyer. Great to have you back in the booth, man. How are you feeling?
Great to have you. I didn't know your eyes were this blue until I just saw this. Like, what the heck is going on?
The camera adds like 3 hues.
Jeez, that looks good. I'm having a blast. I walked around to look at some matches. We got some people showing up late today to get IP3s. We got some people bringing Street Fighter to play after you already lose. What's interesting is after round 3, if you go 0-3, we have a super armory. So we have all kinds of stuff happening. Kind of crazy to see a Kano player with 42 health, though, after 35 minutes of playing. I was like,
yeah, so I took Margin Bay aside and obviously asked him. Obviously, there's still some discussion happening in the chat after what happened last round, which I sort of don't blame you guys. And obviously, he indicated to the camera a thumbs up. And I said, you know, what did you actually play in order to win? And he actually said, it doesn't matter. So I think he sent his pitch stack back on top of his deck and stacked it in such a way that he could KO a spell off the top. He's like, after three of these wildfires resolve, I can basically point any spell I want at my opponent and win the game. So that was a win for Margin Bay in that round there. It wasn't a concession. I think he just outright won the matchup. Let's jump into the next game, Blake.
Yeah,
we're short on time. Let's do it. It's going to be Shin Inoue.
Oh, Jake is on Switchblade. I didn't know that.
And yeah, Jake Torres on Uzuri Switchblade. So
I'm pumped for this.
I went and had a chat with Shin at the start of the day and said, we'd really like to get you on coverage if at all possible. I consider Shin probably to be one of the foremost Dorinthea players in the United States. And it really, someone also whose take on the Dorinthea deck allowed her to find a lot of success in metas that were really quite hostile to her. Shin really liked to try and involve a lot more attack actions in his build than maybe the standard Dory way, like if you block me my Dawnblade out, then my turn is sort of over. So he really wanted to make use of non-conditional go-again effects and then deploy attack actions after and try and come in from a few different axes. So
right.
My personal favourite Dorinthea player, someone I follow quite avidly, so this should be a great matchup.
I played this matchup twice on Tuesday for the first time. I brought Dory out to just see what's going on, and both of my Uzuri games went literally to the last cards in the Uzuri deck, and I ended up fatiguing them because I went with 7 or 8 shunts, so... Yep. I'm interested to see, like, oh, he's probably not going to go.
Sorry, hold the phone. We have a Ironsong Determination and a Glistening Steelblade turn 0 play from Shin. So that means that we are coming in for 4 dominate, card in hand. Every time we hit, we get a counter.
Yikes.
Go again, by the way. Just go again.
I think what's interesting is seeing the Arcanite Skullcap of that is not normally played for Uzuri. So we are going to be able to block a couple times for Dorinthea Strong's turns, but not what you want to see on turn 1 if you're Jake.
Yes. So if you have, like an 0-for-4 defense react, like a sink below, then you can deal with this. But Shin likely is probably holding up an attack reaction in hand here. Jake does not have one of those defense reactions. So we are getting a hit here with go again, by the way. That was a blue Warrior's Valor in pitch. So Shin is good to go again.
We're doing for 5 now.
Yeah. And guess what? You hit now. 2 counters go on your Dawnblade. So ending turn 0 with 3 Dawnblade counters is about as good as it gets for a Dorinthea player.
And right now, I don't think Jake's life is normal. That's 39. I'm assuming somebody's going to start clicking the buttons pretty soon.
Got to throw the armor in at this point. And guess what? No pump here. So, look, I mean, getting a piece of armor here is pretty important so early in the game. And a singular Dawnblade counter, as you know, as a Dorinthea player yourself, obviously can really work
all your math way better.
Yeah.
Of your 3, 6, 9 blocks don't matter against my 4, 7, 10.
Now, there was a time where Dorinthea felt really good playing against Assassin back in the Arachne era because Orbital Class didn't exist. Nerf Scalpel didn't exist. Now you've got cards that reduce the defensive effectiveness of non-attack actions and of reaction cards, and that's obviously what Jake has here. You don't bring Orbital Class into necessarily every matchup, but...
Orbital Class feels like the best card in the world against Dorinthea because if you do want to pivot and start doing block 2 cards, attack with 2 cards, now your blocks only come in for 4 instead of 6.
Yeah.
And that won't hit the bigger attacks like Shakedown or Command and Conquer. Those are going to go through instead of be blocked pretty easily.
So Backstab here deployed by Jake, and obviously it's a stealth card, right? Which is important for Uzuri's ability here, is you can switch it with a attack action card, of course, 2 or less from your hand, and you can't play defense reactions to Backstab's chain link. But more important is the shakedown here that comes in. Obviously, that Uzuri specialization already going to put some pressure on.
And Shakedown, I think, is pretty good against Story because you know, okay, my opponent already has a counter. What's the best counter making ability? I'm going to hit yellows now because I don't want to do that all over again. Or I'm going to go for red.
Shunt you.
Which shunts are so good in this matchup
Yep.
because, like, when you give another window to use a defense reaction, if you have all 8 shunts ready to go, that sometimes the red ones just stop it in its track by itself.
And this is why you see Dorinthea players not always playing Courage or Blade Hold in a lot of matchups, because the math on like a free shunt off a tunic counter is incredibly potent.
Right.
Obviously, you can now play defense reactions after the backstab gets removed from the chain link and replaced by backstab. Shakedown rather. Shakedown obviously saying you can choose a color and banish that color card from your opponent's hand is very strong. But Shin had the perfect answer to it. Obviously, with a bit more of a mid-range take on Dorinthea here. Now gets to turn around and go, hey, I'm going to present 4 damage now. This is a break point. This is a little bit annoying. The sink below in Jake's hand, though, is definitely going to give him a better feeling, but it will be triggering reprise as it won't come from Arsenal.
So true. You could do the whole, okay, no blocks, straight to reactions. You can do some baiting out with some of these defense reactions too. Shin is probably knows that better than anybody though. Like, okay, I'll act last.
And it's a long game between these two. Like you sort of mentioned, you found that these matches can sort of go to fatigue in some cases. So.
And the remembrance is there in the pitch zone, so we know Shin
is probably
knows
running like 72 cards in this kind of matchup.
Yeah.
Like it's much of that sideboard. In fairness, Dorinthea in this current meta definitely runs more cards to deal with aggro matchups, like sort of non-blue hit and runs, for example. Shin was even experimenting, I think, with Duskpath Pilgrimage as well. Against
I have not seen that played in a long
like extra attacks, right? Ways to really punish these decks. If you're in a sort of race matchup here. So it looks like that red isolate coming in after the nerve scalpel. So reaction cards obviously limited in their effectiveness, and now a dominate card that you expect to be switched out for something here for Jake.
If you're playing red isolates, I bet you're doing 9 of these, and this is probably Uzuri's best way to mess with Dory. Let me hit you with one of my daggers to make your stuff less, and now you can't even block my extra stuff off the dominate, and it will.
You.
But if you get a shunt in there, always and forever, who cares?
So I think the shunt was in response to the Uzuri activation. So Jake still has to follow through with putting Nourishing Emptiness in play, but we'll see the
Uzuri has a lot of bad interactions like that of like, well, I've already committed. I have to get rid of one of my better cards instead of just letting this isolate resolve.
So obviously Shin, because he's off a tunic counter, deploying these Steelblade shunts tends to tear his hand apart a little bit, right? You're throwing an Ironsong response there to sort of get this card out. And that means that something like this, a Red Warrior's Valor play, is just asking for 2 cards. You can't really imply anything more than that because Shin is empty-handed at the moment. So just saying, hey, I'm going to use this Red Warrior's Valor, probably my most powerful card, to get you to give me 2, to try and limit your tempo and ability to swing back and sort of harm me. Shin also has been deploying a lot of these blue shunts so far, so there's still, I expect, probably 3 red, 2 yellow in this list.
All 8s. I feel like 8 is like if you play Dory and someone explains you what shunt does, it's always 8 of like, the yellows are still good, but you don't want to rely on them, and blue is in your deck all the time to pitch no matter what, and then reds come in against like the huge attackers of Azalea or a Guardian.
We have another isolate here. Oh, and a shakedown coming out. Now, Shin, do you...
Shunt number 3? Shunt number 4?
Yep. He's already thumbing it.
There it is.
Okay, he does.
Oh.
Double pride. This is incredible. So normally, there are like some situations where you don't want to have this in your deck because it just doesn't block right. So it's a card you fear a little bit in matchups where you want to play quite defensively here. But Shakedown obviously will look at will allow Jake to banish cards from Shin's hand. Shin can't block it out. So, hey, I'm going to get 2 Dawnblade counters. I'm going to deploy both of these. I'm going to take the hit on the chin and come back. Now, the issue being is that it's a tunic counter and swing. Right? So you don't really get to pair this, like, enlarged Dawnblade up with, like, any go again or any sort of pumps. But you still say, hey, if you want to block this, you still need to give me 2 cards.
And instead of swinging for, like, nothing or swinging for 3, now it's a 5 of give me 2 cards to get rid of these Ironsong. What are they? Ironsong Pride, right?
Pride, yeah.
Ruin my pride, get rid of my counters with just 2 cards when normally every other turn I do get Shakedown, you do get a card for me, and then I have, like, at best put a card in my arsenal or swing Dawnblade for 3. this is like almost the best case scenario if you were going to get shaken down.
Now, of course, we know that Uzuri can operate relatively well off small hands, right? Both of these decks are mid-range much of the time, and you'll see a sink below there in hand for Jake. But again, Shin is playing face up. So the double, this is actually quite frustrating for Jake. He would have loved an elegant way to just put a sink below in front of this Dawnblade attack and have those counters go away. Now, you may as well not have a defense reaction this turn because regardless, it's going to cost you 2 cards to stop this and to get these counters off the Dawnblade. So it becomes really awkward when you're coming in for 5 as opposed to just the 4. Shin maybe not aware of that, but this is one way of like playing around that 0 for 4 defense reaction that kind of makes it feel like a dead card, or it may as well be a 3 block of any other variety here.
And Jake could have had maybe the Mask of Perdition or the Black Tech Whisperers, and then use those 1 blocks to pair with this and get around this. But this is a matchup where Uzuri values I want to go again on any 0 or 1 cost instead of like hoping I hit against Story, because there's going to be so many hardcore blocks coming from Shin, where Jake does need the utility of I can do whatever I want, but then you lose a point of damage here, and now this turn is just awful for you.
Yep. So obviously Shin at a life deficit here, but
not for long.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're Jake, I think you cannot let Dory just go with these 2 counters. Like, let's say you take 5 to the Jin here. Shin might not even block you next turn unless you can really point some very nasty disruption. Because if Shin gets a swing back around with a 4-card hand and 2 Dawnblade counters,
it's the snowball already happened.
Yeah.
You have to block.
Yeah.
And we see like a Codex in his hand, so it just feels like a very I don't want these cards right now hand from Jake.
Glad you bring that up. Shin probably has bordered out all of his attack action cards because of that. Obviously you don't want to deal with that. You don't want to have to deal with the downside that Codex can sort of inflict on you. And
that seems so counterintuitive to Flesh and Blood, but when you have that explained to you, because that happened to me Tuesday, of like, just don't play your Command and Conquers. Yes, it could really mess with the Lexi or mess with the Assassin, but it's not worth having that come out of your hand when they're on you.
All right, so we did see 2 cards. I think that was actually a Leave No Witnesses there. Was that a Frailty Trap?
It's the green one. Yes.
Yes, okay, so
it made our Dawnblade only for 4, which is interesting, because then
why is there no...
We're going to Codex and go grab the Leave No Witness. That's why we blocked with it, to immediately grab it, or maybe he has a favorite one in the back.
It wasn't a go-again attack, so you don't get a Frailty token from that. But this, yes.
This does.
You will get it.
Frailty tokens, that's why Dorinthea is not running around in this meta, because Frailty tokens hit Dory probably the hardest out of any character, in my opinion, if you're all on Dawnblade and boosting Dawnblade. Like, I think I had 2 Frailty tokens against me, and it made all my math, like, I'm going to swing a Dawnblade for 1. Like, what is the point of that?
Well, it's not 61. I'm not sure how this is being represented.
It's also not Leave No Witness. He decided to do more damage,
Strike,
7.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 cards there for Shin. You note that is a Stillblade Supremacy being parted with here. So at multiple points throughout this game, Shin's been able to grow that Dawnblade in size, and that Frailty token here is a little bit frustrating, but hey, you can still put 5 damage in front of your opponent here. This is a red Warrior's Valor. Even a yellow would have been acceptable here, as you're still able to get a break point in front of your opponent. And this is Dory playing off small hands.
Right.
Doesn't always... I think if you're playing off small hands of Dory, you'd really rather be, playing like Singing Steelblade, be able to like go fetch a go again via Glint and, go from there. Off like a very face-up play, it doesn't feel good now to throw your 2nd red Warrior's Valor at your opponent and be like, hey, this is all information available to you. You have everything you need to know how to block this entirely. So...
Is Dawnblade for 3 still scary in this meta, or is it like, not?
Are you Riptide? Because that's how you win that game. You just you poke Dawnblade for 3 with no pumps, no go again for the whole game. You just kill them. It's ridiculous.
Take that, Riptide.
Well,
he needed another bad match.
No, I mean, no, I don't think so. I think that's a great question, and in aggro metas, Dory wants to front load and front pump her blade. It's a term that Josh Lau coined about when you actually do the buffing, right? So we're actually seeing more cards like Sharpened Steel now being brought back to the decks. It's like, obviously, it's free. You pay it. You buff your Dawnblade by 3, so it's coming for 6 already. And I think that in face-up race matchups where you're less priced into blocking, that card looks much better because if your opponent's racing you, you can't have all these conditional, your reprise cards don't matter. So you lose a lot of value off those, and you really need just upfront front-loaded damage, right?
Right.
That's something worth bearing in mind, I think.
Looking for a scrap for Uzuri is so good because I feel like it's almost 15 damage that you can rely on a game where your opponent's like, I don't really want to block this because there's no on hit, and there's probably going to be worse stuff from Uzuri later. We choose to block 3 of this, so 2's going to get through. Dagger for 1 more, and then it's like, what is in their arsenal?
You know what would be great? Leave no witnesses.
That would be amazing.
It'd be obviously pretty frightening, or nothing, as it may be the case here. So, Jake obviously hoping to poke. If there's any concern about this Uzuri player, suffering from fatigue, then being able to consistently just put 1 damage across the line is important. Okay, so again, we're playing off small hands as Dorinthea, but a command and conquer here definitely feels pretty good.
Especially if that's a sync below an arsenal. I don't remember him playing the sync yet.
I think it actually might be because there was the turn where Jake had sync in his hand and he instead blocked with a card and a frailty trap and then put a card in arsenal. So
this
that
is
might be a sync.
threatening a sync, which is pretty good. Anytime you can get a defense reaction when it's not a Dawnblade, you're like, this is the best day of my life as Dory.
Now, this card for Shin left over is headed straight for the arsenal. There's nothing really here. There's the dream. I think like one
the
in
pummel.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that legend?
So 1 in 100 games, I feel like you're able to pummel CNC in this list. And Shin was one of the first players to do it. Like he brought a singleton blue pummel in. It's like, hey, it still pitches blocks for 2. It's fine, but you can also, attack with the Dawnblade, and then you can Singing Steelblade the Dawnblade on the previous chain link to pull the pummel out of your deck as a reaction. That's a nice little reaction. So if you play CNC after a Dawnblade swing with Go Again, you can still get a pummel out of your deck. But that's just, just don't count on it. It's not a thing that happens with any form of regularity unless you're testing a lot.
Jake took 6 immediately. The card was from Ponder. That makes sense, and it was a give and take.
Okay.
Which I don't think, like if this is going to be a longer matchup, you kind of want give and take to proc so you can get a couple cards back instead of hoping that it gets
Yeah. I mean, looking for a scrap feels like an E-Strike Go Again, like a Zealous Belting. Like they put that 5 in front of you to start the turn. You just kind of give a card there and move on to the next chain link. So we have another Isolate here. That's a red one. What will it be? CNC.
Ooh.
Oh, that's brutal. I mean, you are not
shunt
shunting that.
Yeah. Goodbye.
All right.
But we can't Oasis. I'm built different.
That is my goat right there. Okay, yeah, Shin obviously, like I said, playing with likely like upwards of 70 cards here, so those Oases come in out of the sideboard.
Right. And you're trying to get those on a perfect turn, but I feel like Uzuri has a lot more turns where Oasis in your hand, you're like, this is amazing, because I can wait for the Uzuri to switch on me and feel like they got me cornered, and then I just Oasis. And the Uzuri has to do that instead of like the double bluff going on.
So after that Oasis, it is a very exciting Dawnblade for 3.
Yeah, just take it, Jake. Go to 30.
This was off of a Tunic counter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So again, this is how Dorinthea this is also why Tunic is good outside of just being able to play shunts. It's, blocking fairly liberally and still being able to sort of chip back some damage here, ask for a card or get through damage is obviously really important. So
I think we'll see an E-Strike coming in for a Go Again to soften up Dory one more time. He keeps putting defense reactions to the bottom of his deck off of
E-Strike.
E-Strike.
That was what happened, obviously.
Yeah, somebody told us about the chat. I saw that one. Unless that's also a sync. I mean, all these cards look like sync when you're...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of blue with some greens.
So this is like, again, Jake following a very similar pattern of presenting like a 5-power Go Again attack at the start of his turn. Now, Shin, to fatigue the Uzuri, like you really need, this is awkward to block, right? It usually asks for 1 card. Dory says, I will happily play off 2 cards in an arsenal. That is kind of my bread and butter. So, but you are leaking 2 damage each time this happens. So slowly, we're getting worked down the size here. This is a Leave No Witnesses. Obviously, again, this threatens the arsenal. It's a pretty powerful card, a great target to bring back with Codex of Frailty as well. So, absurd amount of value available to you if you do that.
I think there's another Oasis too. Just don't say it too loud. They can hear us.
That would be.
We're blocking with our shoes, so we can start threatening that value. Refraction Bolters for everybody at home. It's one of the weirdest cards because it's not in reaction or whatever.
So
it's
good.
just when we hit you with damage, we're allowed to say, I would like to swing my sword again, and there's nothing you as the
Yeah.
opponent can do to stop
It says when this hits. So it's not an attack reaction like Black Tack Whisperers, for example,
Right.
which means that it's very hard to be... I mean, let's be honest. If your opponent pops their Courage of Blade Hold and then plays a Supremacy, there's a good chance they're going to use the Bolters there. But also Run Through getting blocked with there. Run Through a card that obviously gives your current Dawnblade attack go again, but pumps the next one. It's a card you want to use when your opponent's not respecting that first Dawnblade attack. And they're not blocking it, right? Because you need to hit with that first attack for the other half of the card to matter. So
And I
it's
think
a very reasonable card to block with here.
the idea of Naked Dawnblade for 3, like Strike Through is the one that makes that Dawnblade
Yes.
for 3 so good when they don't block.
And it used to be either Glint or Bolters. That's all that it would mean from Dory, and it was a very easy no block. Because you'd play a Glint and get no card draw value, or you'd have to like break your Bolters on a Naked Swing is awful. That card meant that you could imply vastly more by just swinging a Naked Dawnblade. But here, again, we are just playing the mid-range game. Come in, Naked Dawnblade, pump it by 6, and all of a sudden, we're back to life parity. Shin's able to arsenal a card. He says, if my opponent has a stumble turn at any point, then we can get serious. But for now, I'm really quite happy blocking with 2 cards, a turn cycle, stopping your disruption. Shin, a very, very patient player. He actually has a lot of videos on his YouTube channel where he plays multiple Uzuris back to back, and he will go to fatigue. He understands the game plan really well. Give and take here.
Because I think blocking 6 on Uzuri is kind of how you beat her. And if there's not enough resources to dagger first and hit exactly what you have, and when you're not playing attack reactions, Orbital Class is I know this is going to hit all your blocks. So both of these daggers make the isolate for 6 thing. If you want to do 5, what is it? Dagger, dagger, give and take dagger, isolate is so good.
He's keeping his cards. Shin obviously opting not to block the give and take here, which, by the way, is a way to sort of protect yourself from a premature fatigue situation, right? Bringing a card back off your graveyard, throwing it on top of the library. Very powerful Briar. See a lot in some of these more modern Briar lists.
Free 9 damage in this matchup because you're I don't want you to shake me down again just to block this card.
Yep.
I'll take 3 here, so I'm not taking 6
it's what
more
it
later.
Implies. Your opponent knows full well what you're probably going to pick back up off out of your graveyard here. Shin, again, doesn't really know what he's heading into. There's a question of does he have a defense reaction? The shunts are less efficient right now or off our tunic counter, so we throw a precision press in front. Here's the old switcheroo. No reaction.
What is it this time?
Death Touch.
Death Touch is so good because we can frailty. Because we can... There's no point in Blood Rod poxing. Maybe you want to inertia to what has been in his arsenal for 4 turns. But most of the time it is make that Dawnblade. Who cares about the Dawnblade? Make it 2 instead of 3.
Yeah, it's very frustrating for heroes that really want to leverage their weapon, especially in terms of presenting breakpoints for the weapon. Thanks, James. Big fan.
I'm so excited for that chorus card though. It's just now Oasis doesn't work.
The
Oasis has been there. I think we saw that coming. That's perfect against the Death Touch because that is a card you don't want to have hit you as Dory. Who cares sometimes about some of the other ones of, I don't know if we're going to see a surgical extraction come in. Maybe that would not be great because you lose a blue and now you're just 1 for 3. But
I mean, you can imply so much from this. The best play available to Shin here is likely going to be a 3-block from Jake into singing Glint and let's threaten a Dawnblade counter. That's the best formula you could have with a hand of this size, and you obviously have the resources enough to do it. Even a Brave Forge activation in there, depending on sort of what comes up off the Glint. So,
I think what I love about this matchup is both players are asking their opponent to block perfectly for 50 minutes, and it is a song and dance of how well do you know my cards, and then as soon as there's one random card in your list that they have not been aware in their testing, that's probably how they'll lose here.
So Shin could have anything in his hand. It could be nothing, right? Generally, he's very happy to get another defense reaction out of his opponent here. He's got to be keeping track of those as much as he's able. On a turn where, ostensibly, he's only presented a Naked Dawnblade, more than happy to sort of see a defense reaction come as a result of that here. Yeah, it's a slower game plan. And put it out in chat, maybe... Inertia might be a stronger card here for Dory because she wants to sit on that arsenal because that's what makes her 2-card hands actually really threatening. Otherwise, it's pitch, play a Warrior's Valor or something and just make you block with 2 cards. That arsenal card can signify a pump. and then another attack,
Right.
right? So there is definitely an argument to be made for using inertia there as opposed to shrinking the Dawnblade. But I mean, stopping the breakpoints that's pretty nice.
One card I threw in the Dory list, where I don't know if everybody's doing this, is Burdens of the Past. And it came right at the end of the game, and I was like, you cannot use defense reactions. I was so excited. I was like, I have Dominate from the Ironsong Determination.
And they played Oasis, right?
They played 2 Oasis. I was like, this is
my
rigged.
brother in Christ, it's a trap. I'm telling you. Because the only deck that plays enough defense, most decks are 9.
Right.
About 9D reacts, right? Maybe the Tree Frog Dash plays enough defense reactions for you to get that upside. Because that card doesn't replace itself until there's 10D reacts in graveyard, right?
Never going to happen.
It's like an answer, I guess, to a potential future hyper fatigue list. But oh, that's fun.
A double Oasis.
That's that Dorinthea
maybe
life.
I'll take this out.
Okay, here's another switcheroo here. Humble coming out.
That's so good against Dory.
Suffice to say, that's a relevant switch up here with that Puncture already thrown in front to block. It's 3 damage and turning off Dorinthea's hero ability, which is the one that allows her to attack twice with Dawnblade.
I feel like you're kind of like taking a stray bullet for some other heroes that are in the meta where like, I don't think Jake is putting this together of like, I'm going to play Humble because I think there's going to be a Dory there.
That card's gross against Lexi if she has a face-down arsenal.
Right.
And obviously can't flip it and then, do what she does. Right?
No defense reaction from Shin, so he will only swing Dawnblade once, which is so good for Jake of like, I got some health ahead. Oh.
So, yeah. So
why are we playing this if we can't swing our Dawnblade a second time? Yeah.
That's the question. Unconditional go again is very important if you're hoping to have a bookend this with an attack action card. But I suspect that even though Shin is upwards of 60 cards in this matchup, he probably took out the attack actions to not be fallible against Codex of Frailty. So this probably is just saying, hey, I just want cards, or I could get a counter. Okay, Singing Steelblade here. We already have go again, not that it may really matter, but we're up to 4 now.
But we can go grab our Twinning Blade.
Guess what?
Which now is our hero power with getting around Humble.
Right. We now have a card that says you can attack again with your Dawnblade after that was blanked on Dory. So, look.
Dory's never been humbled a day in her life.
No. Listen, she's queen. No one's humbling Dory. All right, that ain't happening. In fairness, this turn looks vastly more explosive if you don't have to get a Twinning Blade.
Right.
You can get something else, like maybe a route to guarantee a hit or something like that. Or maybe you're on the second Dawnblade attack to really, guarantee you can do some serious work there. So, yeah, pretty nice. We are making it work despite being humbled.
And Jake could still have a defense reaction and pretty much punish this. And Shin's just, I need the defense reaction instead of just taking one. Now I'm forcing you to do this.
Shin is asking for this.
Yeah.
So quite often you actually see Dorinthea in a situation where you expect your opponent has a defense react, you want to get it out of them. So you're over by 1 damage. And if you see a defense react as a result of that, that's very good because it's very inefficient use of a D react to stop 1 damage coming through. And you get the twinning to sort of say, hey, you're damned if you do and if you don't now because I get to attack again, whether or not you have the defense reaction here. But on this first attack, I'll get a counter if you don't block it. And so this says to Jake, you're giving me more than 2 cards if you don't want me putting dice on this blade.
Right. And I think what Jake's looking for in a graveyard right now is like, how many Ironsong responses have we already blocked with? What's going on here? Shin's probably counting how many defense reactions have been used already.
I'll make it easy for you, Jake. They always have it.
Yeah.
They always.
There's a reason Shin's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, and getting another card here, I think, though, in terms of the tempo game is really important because all of a sudden now, you cannot come in with your weapons, right? Like, I guess like the most effective play for Jake is like an isolate into a 2-cost attack action card.
Right.
So Shin favors
a code. No, he's pitching.
So Shin favors the tempo swing more than the Dawnblade counters at this point. But seeing a pretty efficient 6-power card with a very relevant on hit, not really what he would have wanted to see here.
No, we're gonna block with 2 cards every time here. Because the on-hit is too gross.
Okay.
I feel like Shin is like, okay, I'm down by 6, but I'm not really worried about this at all.
So the shunt, the red shunt coming up, getting, not full value. It wasn't a weapon attack, but still. Shin is more than happy to go back to playing off 2 cards here.
Steelblade Supremacy.
It's the bubble. He's flashed it.
Oh, my God, it exists. What? No, there's no way that's going to be used this game though as the full version of that. But
Probably no, it's attack.
yeah,
action.
there's no
Yeah,
attack. What's cool about Supremacy is this is the grossest card in my deck because it's going to buff my sword the whole time. Jake's laughing because he finally
he's
was
seen
like,
it.
What is this?
I mean, that's that's always a fun thing to do.
Wait until Shin has like the blue judge's pummel that's cold foil with a special sleeve or something. So this is gonna be 5. Dawnblade's gonna be 5 the whole turn. If he swings it again, it's a buff the whole turn. Anytime you hit, you draw a card, and everybody knows how strong drawing a card is in this game. So this is a must block for every brand new player who's trying to learn how to beat Shin. Maybe even your Dory at home. Like always block this card.
So we have 1 floating here and no tunic counter. So Shin's options are pretty limited. He's probably just asking for 2 cards here. This could be, I guess, look, if there was a decent pump, maybe you pump, break bolters, and you make something happen there. If you get like, a blue, you can Brave Forge Braces and have a 4 power attack coming in, but it's a tough sell there. Again, it's using his threat cards to say, I want 2 cards. I need to keep you off a full hand because I don't want these weapons coming in and making
Shakedown number 3 coming right here.
Oof. How many of those shunts you got left, Shin? He's had exceedingly good fortune. I'd say you make your own luck in this game, but to see the shunts when he's had to. But I think he might be out of luck here.
The no block for 3 kind of messes you up of the thought process of I need to. You can't block 3 and then do your crappier shunts.
Yep.
You need the full shunt, the red one. That's what I'm trying to say. And if I get it out.
We have Crown of Providence and Brave Forge Braces. They are unmarred so far, right?
Right.
So there's 4 block there between those 2.
And usually when you see that with Dory, they're waiting for their 1 turn that everything's cooking, and they'll block with their fridge, technically, is what we call it in the business, and then just go right at you, which I'm sure Jake is not looking forward to that turn.
So in reactions, we have an Oasis Respite here. Shin obviously favoring the life preservation here is going to suffer the on-hit regardless because we were well and truly in reactions there. When I see...
He's going to say a color, and then he's going to look at Shin's hand and banish 1 of that color.
Shin pitched in order to try and make that a more complex decision. That's got to be a blue Valor. I don't think
hope he
Shin
didn't say
plays
yellow.
Valors. He said red, unsurprisingly. So Shin shows him a hand of reds here. Yeah. Okay.
I do love that these people could be in round 3 of a pretty big tournament and everybody's just smiling. Like I like that about Flesh and Blood of people are having fun.
Listen, you're bringing Dorinthea to a battle hardened. You best be looking to have fun. I mean, I want to point out that a masterful Dorinthea player can win any sort of matchup here, but Shin has never, to my knowledge, really wavered on sort of what hero he's wanted to play here. So this is a very classic. Shin's very face up on that turn, right? I think we know that's another Command and Conquer in the arsenal. Or maybe it was a Valor and Command and Conquer was pitched.
So he is playing attack reaction or attack actions. We were wrong.
Yes. So
he could pummel. The dream is not dead.
Yeah, I mean, if it goes in the pitch stack, you never know. Another CNC here. So this just says give me 2. And the Nerve Scalpel here, maybe you would have attacked.
Orbital class.
Yeah, maybe you would attack with Orbital class here if you really want to sort of guarantee a CNC connection here. So Shin getting a little bit of a reprieve in terms of the blocking calculus here.
We've seen Jake before on our streams, and he was doing Tree Frog Dash. I'm wondering if there's any reason he switched to Uzuri, if maybe Tree Frog is bad against Lexi or something.
He might have wanted to make friends.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
True.
That's
you can do that with Uzuri for sure.
Is a big part of it.
People were shaming him. Okay, now here comes the defense that we were talking about. This is a pivot turn.
Well, it's about life preservation because otherwise you just block with the Crown of Providence, right? Mm-hmm. But you're getting a little low now. You do need a buffer. You're falling behind by 8 life. You want to have a medium-sized hand. So we tunic counter 3 cards in hand, 1 card on arsenal for sure.
Has to be a good turn.
Yes. Or
just
at least
for
one
3.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so innocuous. It's so innocuous. Very, very cute.
Yeah. Sometimes the right answer is don't block at all. But does Jake, when you're looking across and it's one of the best story players in the world, do you have the cojones to do that?
Right. So you tell yourself we've seen one run through blocked with. Most story lists have two in the sideboard a lot of the times if they feel like they're in a race matchup. So obviously bringing in if you need to go up in deck size. So the options aren't great for Shin. I mean, we've seen much of his deck, and if that's a run through in hand, then this, this asks for a block here. I think I saw a Death Touch in Jake's hand, which obviously doesn't do much until it gets into the pocket. So
Right.
it's not a terrible block candidate.
Unless it comes off stealth too.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
I am wondering what's going through Jake's head right now, because he's played probably 5 of his 6 defense reactions. We haven't really seen. How many Oasis has Jake played yet?
Oh, Jake, none. Have we seen any?
Interesting.
Okay, so we are. Okay, so
It's the Command and Conquer that's coming. Okay.
Shin wants, exactly. Or he wants to he wants to dig a little bit more and already had the answer. It's just a matter of it's a matter of sequencing. So he doesn't want to signal to Jake whether he ripped that off the top or not. But we get go again. We are hitting until we aren't.
Here's a defense reaction. I think this is probably the 5th or 6th Think Below Fates, so he is almost exhausted on those options.
So Shin has card in hand, card in arsenal. A reasonable mind would suggest that there's probably another attack reaction available here. Question is just, how heavy are you trying to commit? So it looks
Command and Conquer for the 2 floating and Arsenal. Okay.
So again here, it really represents damage. That's what Shin wants to do.
And I think an indirect buff from Shakedown is that that you got one of the Command and Conquers in the Banish, but this isn't a secret that Shin has this.
Yes.
So you're like, I'm going to block with my defense reaction first before this Command and Conquer comes, and then apparently take 6.
Right. So
Okay.
Because again, look, you don't have Crown of Province, you don't have any card in Arsenal, you're ahead in life, but Shin gets what he wants. He gets to come back around to this mid-range playstyle with your opponent's a card down, no Arsenal.
Right.
So that really shrinks the Uzuri's turn. Shin is saying to himself, okay, there's like double precision press in hand here, so we're definitely blocking, at least with that card. But he's saying to himself, if I can come back around and have like 3 cards, my tunic count is still up, we can still get some action. So shrinking that life deficit,
It's
really
so
important.
Yeah.
Again, another looking for a scrap. I think again, need to start the turn is it's leaking damage, always 2 damage.
That reminds me of the old school life for life turns, or because Scar for Scar everybody knows, but some of the Dories that I was playing 2021 were doing life for life and just ruining mine.
Yep.
Because I was trying to Bravo them and it was just a mess.
That's something that Shin also was trying to do.
Look how fast those blocks were. He was like, get this out of here.
Well, it's pretty awkward, right? You already have a frailty token, so your next turn probably looks less spectacular from a 10,000 foot perspective.
Energy Potion pass is not that bad. And so
no, I mean, that's why, and you're priced into blocking there because you like to keep threat density, you like to maintain that arsenal, and hey, you only took 2 damage from that turn cycle. That's what you want to see.
And whenever you kind of take a turn off, Uzuri gets the dagger.
Yeah,
and that's kind of where she shines, which I think making every single card in your hand block for 2 instead of 3 is not where you want to be if you're trying to come back.
So we have on-hit effects so not attacks are defending for 1 less, reactions, not just defense reactions, all reactions defending for 1 less here for Shin. So, I mean, one would hope that he has a very good hand because he might be past the point of no return when it comes to the blocking decisions here.
And I think one thing we always talk about is whose deck is going to get better as the game goes on. Those isolates are just going to be constantly one turn after the other because the isolates go back to the bottom of your deck, and then it's you're just dominating every turn and forcing a block, and it's how many shunts do you have left?
Yep.
And Shin's, I think, shuffled his deck at least once from the Singing Steelblade.
Oh, that hurts. That one.
Is the worst card to see.
Really hurts. No more Crown of Providence up. Shin is going to have to take that one to the chin. And obviously there's more where that came from when it comes to Command and Conquer, also sending Shin's Arsenal card packing.
Twinning Blade was in Arsenal.
Twinning Blade in Arsenal. Pretty good against a deck that's looking to block extensively, especially when you have a turn where there's an Energy Potion available. You pair that with something like a Supremacy. You're having a good time. But again, we are back to brass tacks Dorinthea play here. Present the Naked Dawnblade and see what your opponent wants to do. That's a shade? No, that's a hurl, excuse me. Another Isolate, if I'm not mistaken.
And I think, he has 11 health. No, he has 9 health left because we're going to be able to inflict knives a couple times. we're going to be able to hurl.
Yep.
And then it is like, oh, I don't have 40 health to work with. And I don't know. That just seems so like I'm coming from the bottom and I have no idea how to get out of this unless you draw your next hand is so powerful.
Yep.
You have like 2 cards left to block with.
I want to say that Jake, with this Uzuri build, has been really action point efficient. A lot of the time, like, Uzuri doesn't necessarily have, like, inbuilt ways to go wide, but Jake has sort of overcome that limitation with, like, looking for a scrap, with, you know, his E-strikes. There's quite a few cards we can open up with, like, a go-again attack for, like, a non-negligible amount of damage, right? So he's actually, and because Uzuri with a full hand couldn't always present, like, the maximum amount of damage.
Right.
It was like, you have a 6. Maybe no way of getting go again. You know, you got Snapdragons, but that's sort of it. So that's hard to fatigue her for that reason, because she can make use of a full grip of cards with access to these like go again attacks to start your train off.
Just dagger is so strong. Jake had the defense reaction, so Shin's like, no way you have it again. Jake is like, yes.
This hand is powerful. I see a route. I see a singing Steelblade. I see a glint the Quicksilver and an overpower.
If that overpowers blue, that'll be the battery card for sure for that.
Yep.
But can you take...
Right. How disruptive is it? It's
if
always disruptive.
If this is like a surgical extraction, maybe it doesn't do 6 points of damage, but it does 4 and ruins your turn.
Yep.
Because I think that's what's crazy is like, oh, I'm going to grab a blue, or, oh, what's your best pump, or what would give... Like, against Dorinthea, you would just have to attack the one that has go again, and you stop her turn completely.
Yep.
What's
Brody Spurlock is at this event. Tudor, yep. He made the trip down. It's another shunt. Okay.
Shunt from Arsenal, so that gets around the dominate.
Okay, so still...
oh, yeah, there was a window. Okay,
yeah. Exactly. He has to deploy that
was just
surgical.
very quick, my bad.
Okay, so this is still decent for Shin. Energy Potion means this turn has legs. You should be able to make something happen here. It's not a shock and awe turn, but it's a turn where that singing can obviously pull you another glint if it's in the deck still, or a reaction that you might need. The Energy Potion can fuel the route if that was a route we saw in Shin's hand. So there's no reason why he can't have a pretty decent turn here.
We're gonna use our shoes to go again.
Yeah, it feels so bad though. God. Off a 3.
Give us another one from our Brave Forge.
Here's a 4. Okay.
Jake's like, let me do it.
He's like,
I'm the one not blocking. I have plenty of time. Yeah, Los Angeles is closer to where Brody lives than Singapore, so yeah.
Yep, that is true and factual.
He's like, I guess I can go there.
Okay, so this is, you would like to use your Refraction Bolters on a turn where, you can guarantee sometimes like a 3rd hit, or under like a Supremacy turn where like there's a lot of value baked into getting that go again. But here Shin has to find a way to manufacture some form of pressure. Now, this doesn't have go again. There is a Singing Steelblade in hand. He's very likely going to have to use it. A route as well. Remember, like, we're running out of resources here. Dory does need to obviously, pitch quite a lot to make this stuff happen.
Right.
Block for 6 here. Respectful. And if Jake's sitting on a defense reaction, Shin might be out of the game.
Yeah. If we do hit, though, we get a Dawnblade counter, which would be amazing.
Okay.
So it's route time.
It's the yellow.
And now this is how you could potentially lose from this position if you're Uzuri, is to give a Dawnblade counter out of nowhere.
You don't feel amazing by sitting an Isolate back into your opponent's hand, but they have 9 of them, so you can't really worry about that. You need to hit. You need that counter. You need to find a way again to start to, play to your own outs here.
And Dawnblade has a counter for the first time since like turn 4.
Yeah.
Which, can he use that, or is 11 health too little to not block and go?
So this hand is, as pointed out in chat, it's like double Isolate, give and take.
Give and take when you're under 10, you're going to start blocking.
A stumble here, but a stumble here could be devastating for the Uzuri player. This is like the turn to twist the knife, so to speak. So they're being presented. Shin is not blocking. I am not seeing any inclination to block here.
You're hoping for one of your surgicals from Arsenal or something.
What a turn to just let this happen. Okay, backstab.
I think this is a bluff.
Yeah, I mean, you have to.
Shin doesn't know that yet.
You need cards. There's some. It's an interesting hand. It's like double overpower. you really need to sort of power the spoils of war with a pump. But it's a very expensive pump in your hand. Both of those pumps are, what, 3 costs? Was it overpower? Very, very effective, but also very costly.
That's what the energy potion's for.
Exactly. So very fortunate this double block here, the respect. And we know that Jake just had a give and take in hand. So Shin back to the bread and butter, back to the standard game plan here. Can he keep this counter on the Dawnblade?
And that's some like crazy intangible stuff that Uzuri does to your opponent. Just like Dory has that stuff of you're doomed if you block, you're doomed if you don't block. That block for 6 was just blocking a ghost.
Yep.
And that's the guessing of, did you block correctly for 50 minutes? It's like, well, I did for 45 and I just lose at the end because I guessed wrong once.
You care a lot more at this stage of the game about protecting this counter on the Dawnblade. There's a case to be made that just getting 2 cards out of your opponent might not be enough to give you a chance to break back into the game in terms of tempo. Your opponent's on a tunic counter, which is not irrelevant. Codex there as well.
Codex number 3 is going to be a pain.
Yeah.
Because now it will get a card out of your hand.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's where it's going to hurt Shin.
We're going to think about it. We're going to crack some knuckles.
No bolters here, right? You're definitely going to wish you had those back. A turn like this, you just have to make it happen. So we hit for 4, and we say sayonara. Card in Arsenal. And we're drawing up now. Jake Torres at 10 life with a full grip and a tunic counter.
Surgical extraction. We're going to dagger, and then we're going to codex, I think is what we're going to try. Give and take is a very important layer of this.
The wider you can go here, the harder it is for Dory to be able to come back with anything significant of her own. And giving an Ironsong response here. Whew.
Put whatever you want on top of your deck, Jake.
What will that be?
Does that go at the end of the turn or immediately? I'm not smart enough to remember that layer.
I think it actually happens during the turn.
So that'd be kind of crazy to like Gorganian tome afterwards. And you'd be like, I'm going to draw right away.
It's whenever it's defended by an action card.
So he's defending with a reaction, and it doesn't do it. Let's go, Dory. Okay. We're paying attention.
Here's the nerf scalp.
Dagger for 1.
Getting close to Kadachi Lock Zone, Mr. Inoue. Now, that's a Warrior's Valor in hand there. Okay, Wither.
This is probably where we're going to see the Snapdragon, and it's going to be so oppressive when it comes down.
Flick Knives, Snapdragon still up. Just a embarrassment of riches at the fingertips of Jake Torres. Still another potential block from Skullcap available there too. Much of this Dorinthea fridge has been battered down.
Got it, yeah. 4 minutes left, so both players are probably like, how am I going to win really quickly?
Okay.
We're blocking for 6.
I mean,
it's not a ghost, though. So.
But you're in the late game, and your opponent has just blocked with an Ironsong Determination. A game-winning card for Dorinthea against defensive decks, especially when that fridge is getting worn down. And a Warrior's Valor. Shin cannot play like the optimal, when you read someone do like a primer of a deck list and you're goldfishing, your cards. Shin hasn't really been able to play that way for the entire match because this is real Dory.
Right.
This is how it really feels to play Dorinthea. Block with 2 cards, make it work with 2 cards in an arsenal, plus tunic counter, right? Really, make use of those resources here. This is still frightening, right? We have a counter on Dawnblade. There are multiple ways in which Shin can turn this into a lethal amount of damage. 2 floating.
Through, yeah.
2, I get, or if there's no respect here, again, we can start to go wider. If there's respect here, things like overpower really start to close the life gap.
Because overpower dumping 6 more on your side, I think, for Dory, it's like, okay, you block for 3, cool, take 6 is just so backbreaking for the more defensive decks. And Shin has not played a single one. Yep. I'm sure he's blocked with a couple. That's probably what I'm looking for if I'm Jake. But
no
respect. And it's also kind of a correct guess for Jake.
Yep. I mean, there's no bolters.
Right.
You'd be glinting into no upside.
Strike through is the only thing you get owned by. Orbital class.
All right. Lobotomy underway.
Pitching in red and blue. We're actually 7 minutes because they have a 5-minute extension.
That's right.
So we're not going to have a draw here. Don't worry, people at home. Unless you guys were rooting for a draw, which would be crazy. I've really enjoyed this match because it feels like Dory was the original recipe of this, and Uzuri's kind of like the barbecue version of like.
Sure. That
Like,
speaks in its favor, right?
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Like some people are gonna prefer the sweetness of the barbecue. Some like the original recipe for doing like
man.
KFC, I guess.
Oh, the Codex. Oh,
This is the Snapdragon turn.
You said it would be oppressive. Like, you weren't lying. Was this like a leave no
Leave
witnesses?
no
Okay,
witnesses.
there is a
would
card
get
in
his
hand. And
Arsenal though.
yeah, there's a block on Braveforge Braces still and a card in Arsenal. When did Shin overtake Jacob
It
Life? When he
just
just chose
happened,
not
yeah.
to
He
block
took
a 4
4.
power Dawnblade. Yeah. I mean, like, the guy's got stones. This hurts. Death touch as well. Now we're in the territory where that Blood Rot Pox token is pretty
Gross.
annoying to deal with. Yeah, you don't want to be there.
I think when we were hinting at this earlier, what's the one card that Jay could have that maybe Shin didn't test against that would just wreck? Spreading Plague is one of my favorite ones where you're like,
That's
you
dirty.
are blocking a ghost, and now I'm going to make 2 Blood Rots come on top of you. It's so good.
Sounds like
at
the plot of
end
Scary
the
Movie.
game.
Actually.
Yeah. Getting
Don't go and watch
spooky
that.
over
That's not
here.
age. That's a scary movie. Those movies have not aged well. All right. So we can put the overpower in front here. This was the death touch. What is it going to be? Frailty. So okay, it was the death touch brought back in. Shin parts with the final card in his hand. Still wants to keep the Braveforge braces up here because blocking a potential break point still matters.
Frailties from Codex, I guess, instead of.
Okay, we're using our E-Pot to swing here.
Or maybe it was a Blood Rot and we paid for
yes,
it.
yes, you're
You
dead
just
right.
didn't have a Blood Rot.
Okay, all right.
So Energy Pod has another use, so we never expected.
Yeah, Shin
Blood
took a turn
Rot.
off to not take that damage from. How do you feel about a whole turn for what 2 damage?
Well, when your opponent has Flick Knives, it's game,
Yeah.
so you have to. I think it was Blood Rot. Right? That
yeah.
is what happened.
That's
if
why
people are
Shin-
wondering. I
otherwise-
don't think they had the right token up.
Yeah, it was double. It was double-sided. Otherwise, Shin would have attacked with Dawnblade there, but he didn't. So I think it was a Blood Rot. Because there was a Frailty token, ladies and gentlemen, and then a Death Touch hit. So both.
Right.
There was both. I think
Shin took 1. No, it shouldn't. How much damage did he take from Death Touch? That was all happening. There's also some commotion where I was thinking there's a lot of judges by us right now, but they're getting paid. I thought there was like a discrepancy. I was like, oh no, not again.
I think this is pretty much curtains. Again, that sort of free 1 damage from Flick Knives will hover over Shin in a way like that Damocles sword. He knows that there's a sense of inevitability about that. Also, at what point are you running out of defense reactions? Shin used his Tunic counter, I think, alongside the E-Pot to pay for the Blood Rot Pox. So yeah, we'll throw the braces in front. Do you have it, Mr. Torres?
Oh, we're
Rubbing our hands
we're
together.
Doing it. It's Hurl. I don't think Hurl works at all. It is Hurl. Hurl is. What does Hurl do here?
Well, it's 0 for 3 that allows you to throw a knife and have it blow up, which is pretty good. That's pretty good when your opponent is so low.
At 3.
We have banished it. Have we not? Pitch.
Oh.
Shunt you. And Shin Inoue, again, defies fate.
The people in the chat clamoring for a draw. We have 4 more minutes because they had a time extension.
So there's the hurl. Turns out, false alarm. However, there's some extra text printed on that card. Judge!
I don't know if you send the dagger now or you just wait. You send 1 dagger now and 1 dagger next time, maybe, but you still need the daggers to quote unquote Kodachi lock.
Yes, that's right. So basically, you can pay 1 when it attacks. Target dagger you control deals 1 damage to target hero, right? So there's really the question of I think they're discussing when that can happen. It looks like
I think
we
you
did
have to
not
choose
have
before.
Yeah, when this attacks. But the problem was that was switched in.
So you can't.
Right? It never attacked.
I don't think it
It's
works off of that.
It's the same as Ravenous Rabble, right? You don't get that negative modifier because you're not actually attacking with it. It doesn't form a layer as an attacking card. It's later on. So
there's still.
Shin's like, Judge, help me!
There's still a chance for Shin to come back.
Yes. Yep.
We need 1 more shunt to fall from the sky. but we don't have a Tunic to pay for it. So it will ruin our hand either way. We are in Dagger Lock.
Yeah, when it's a card every time here. You can, I guess you can take the first one, but yeah, you take the first one here. That's it though. No more free daggers.
You have to win on your next turn.
Hard to find all in hand for Shin. So
Ooh,
that's a life bet.
just kidding.
Yeah, can stay afloat.
Dude, I need to spend $600 on that card. It's $400. I feel like
I got it for 180. I was living large. Yep, I got it early. All right, here's Tunic block here and the overpower, throwing everything you have left in front of this isolate.
Whenever you're doing the fatigue against Uzuri, you can kind of realize when she's out of 6s, and starting to block for 4 is cake because you're blocking out the surgicals.
There's something here. Hard final. Don't know what the next card in hand is. Don't know what the arsenal is for Shin.
It does not look like Jake has 10 cards left in his deck.
Yes, so obviously, yeah, with the fatigue possibility starting to loom a little bit. Shin is just at a threshold where he can hold off against that. He definitely has large deck size right now. With my accent, that can be a problem, but you heard me.
Yeah.
Overpower comes in here. That was a 3 block.
6.
Overpower is going to give him 6. No way. Is there a defense reaction? For Jake Torres, unreal.
Good for him.
This is why they bring me in to scream card games. Shin Inoue plucks victory from the jaws of defeat. Finds
He's like, what are these cards?
Answer. Overpower plus 6 to end the game.
That's crazy.
That guy.
Just the thought process of there wasn't a dominate on there, so you could prevent that loss, but Jake...
The guy's restraint not to throw the card at his opponent.
Yeah.
When he played that is just immense.
Because it was, what did we say, block for 50 minutes correctly, and you blocked for 49 minutes and 59 seconds correctly and lose at the end.
Again,
get wrecked.
This is what Dorinthea can do. That could have been in fairness, that could have been a route as well. Could have given you a similar option.
Right.
Work your opponent down incrementally. Sometimes we saw Shin attack for 3, and he would pump for 3, right?
Yeah.
That's 6 damage. That's the end of his turn. Dory can, function on small hands and just chip away. His opponent getting fairly close to fatiguing there. The harder finals to sort of keep you out of hurl or sort of dagger lock range is absolutely ridiculous.
If they don't have a 6, they don't have a 6. So you're never going to get into dagger range to get flick knives. I think it's something too where it's like 3, 6, 9. You have to pay attention to what is in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Like. You don't have the time though, maybe because there's only 2 minutes left. But like, go search for that graveyard, look at every grave there is, and be like, oh, there's an overpower coming probably.
Obviously people in chat saying the 3 block on a Naked Dawnblade is pretty bizarre because
turns on everything.
Exactly. Like you could have Singing Steel bladed into Glint until we're just going to go wide now all of a sudden. So but that's what Flesh and Blood is like. That game had so much back and forth, and the decision-making against Dorinthea is really, really easy. And you're not incentivized to overblock because you're running out of cards.
Right.
All of a sudden,
there's 8 cards left in that deck.
You go from 4 to 2 cards. All of a sudden, you probably can't get through Dory's blocks. You definitely can't throw those knives to limit her defensive potential. At some point, you have to take a risk, and that is a situation that Dory can put you in where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I'm going to run this again because I want to give out so many of these playmats right now. There's going to be none left by round 4.
Sheesh.
Big shout out to friends over.
To print more.
Big shout out to friends of course over at Savage Lands News, giving out 3 playmats for the most epic moments from the stream. We need more. We don't
an
have
attack reaction from the top rope. Is it worth it?
I'm like, well, it depends who you ask here. Of course, we have obviously bounties on a few of our players here. You notice. So we get to choose the recipients of these playmats, so that's fun. But also, there are 3 players here with bounties on their heads, right? Chris Yardley, Craig Pollock, Tyler Horseball. If you beat them, you get a pack of outsiders.
3 packs of outsiders?
3 packs of...
Chris Ayali is apparently having the worst battle harden of his life and is giving away 2 boxes already in 3 rounds.
Man, no shortage of excitement. I've already reached the upper limit of my range here. This is what happens when you get an esports commentator involved.
No.
Well, before we go to a break, very quickly, check us out on social media here. Obviously, we're live. You're watching us. We're at live.age.events. That's our YouTube channel.
I bet you'll be one of these thumbnails soon.
Get me just screeching. A head in my hand. My hair is askew completely.
Nice.
Also, follow us over on Twitter at Arcane Events _. That's obviously where you can get the news from everything coming out from Arcane. Obviously, for those that don't know, the AG Open is the mainstay of what we do here at Arcane Games and Events, and it's a huge part of the Southern Californian tournament scene. We have people come in from out of state to play that circuit running over the course of this year. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on if we have a chance, but for now, I need a cold shower, baby.
Shin. Yeah,
Love to
we're
see
always
that.
going to root for Dory, and hopefully we get to see him later on in top 8. But
There's a reason why all the Dory
yeah.
players end up casting and not playing. I just want to
Yeah.
point that out there. But obviously, shout out to Shin. Really close game. Obviously, as well to Jake. Great to see that here. The Battle Hardened is already heating up. Only just round 3, so stick around for more of the action. Right here, live from Pasadena. They're going to fire me because I got too excited. I'll see you later.